God damn it, guys. Sorry. This is like my millionth attempt. My camera fucked up earlier. And I just decided I'll take an hour break and then I'll come back to it. So I'm back now doing this millionth retake of this video. But today I am reviewing Con Air, which came out in 1997, directed by Jerry Bruckheimer. You know, he's made the National Treasure movies. And I figured, I've always loved Nicolas Cage. He's made some, we always meme and, he's made bad movies. Yes. But he's made some really good ones. And I think this is one of those. And I did a poll last Wednesday. I think it was Thursday, actually. Last Thursday. And I decided, which one was I going to kick off the Nicolas Cage movies with. And it was the three choices were this one, The Rock, or Face Off, which I'm still doing those other two. I'm going to do The Rock next week, which actually is my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, to be honest. This one won. Like, even in like the comments that I got or replies I got, they were all, not all of them, but a lot of them were Con Air, either Con Air or Con Air like GIFs. So it's like I figured it makes more sense to just review Con Air. And yeah, this one's a really good one. It's been a bit since I've watched it, like 6 or 7 years. It's been a bit. But I really always love this one. Like, I like, don't get me wrong, I like my complicated movies where you have like a bunch of moving parts and you have all of this stuff going on. But I'm always fine with just having something simple like this. This movie is just a straightforward. That's what I like about 80s, 90s action films. It's very straightforward. Like this one it's a plane jacking. There's no giant moving parts. There's some side story. Like you have this stuff with Larkin, which that's John Cusack's character, and Malley, I think was the agent he was working with, trying to basically get the ship down. The plane down. Sorry, not the ship. Get the plane down. But aside from that, the main story really is Cameron Poe. Nicolas Cage ends up going to jail because he killed somebody in self-defense, but because of it, he had to go do a couple years in jail. And while he was being transported in the jailbird, Cyrus and a couple of prisoners take over the plane and basically becomes like a plane jacking movie. And that's really all it is. It's like almost like Speed, not Speed, but like a movie where criminals take over. And I think another thing I liked about this one is like John Malkovich, man, as Cyrus. Every scene he kills it. Like the charisma, the way he played it, he carried himself. Like every scene he's in, he just grabbed the fucking attention. And the thing is, he's not like, he is a criminal mastermind, but he's not like some terrorist leader or even like a thief, or like he's just you're a criminal and decide, I'm gonna round up some criminals and do a plane jacking. This isn't like, there's no international, like nothing like that. It's just, I think that's another reason I like it. It's just how simple it is, and we're gonna keep it mainly about the plane jacking. And so basically Poe has to play along like he's a prisoner, even though he's really a free man, because he wants to try to get to see his daughter that he never got to see. Which Cameron's storyline, honestly, is pretty sad in that sense. Like, this dude goes to jail wrongfully, all because he defended himself and his wife, and then never got to see his kid get born. It's pretty sad. So, but it's an awesome film, though. Like, the characters, the performances. I love fucking Cage's accent. Like, he has this southern accent, but like his actual voice does kind of come through at times. It's pretty funny. But like, if you like fun action movies, it's only 2 hours. It gets going pretty quick. Watch it. Has a pretty solid soundtrack. Like, you have like some pop song, which I'll admit, that's not my genre like that. It just isn't. But that song is actually, when they play it, it's a song by LeAnn Rimes called, I think, How I Live. Or I could be fucking wrong. But it's a pretty good song, I'll admit. In the times they play it too, it works. But yeah, guys, Besides that, tomorrow we'll be doing Tremors 6 or Cold Day in Hell, which is the sixth Tremors film. We'll see if this one continues the. Because so far, Tremors 5 was fucking awful. And we'll see if this one continues it. I do like the idea of the graboids in the snow. I think that could be an interesting premise, but I don't know. If for me, if it can just be entertaining, it might just be better than 4 in that sense. Not 4, 5. It might be better than Tremors 5 if it can just be entertaining. But we'll see. I'll talk about that more tomorrow, though. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna cheers and we'll get going on Con Air. So the movie opens up. We get a look at Cameron Poe. He's a former Army sergeant. He ends up getting discharged. One night, goes to like a bar with his pregnant wife, or out. I'm assuming it's like a bar or restaurant. And a guy, like one of the drunk guys, try to hit on her. He puts the guy Cameron puts the guy in his place, and his wife tries to like hold him back from fighting. And sorry if I'm sweating a lot. It's fucking hot as balls in here. Sorry. So when he ends up walking her out, the guy and his kind of buddies come. His wife tries to stop him, but he ends up like, "Nah, I'm gonna go." He fights them, and the one guy tries to pull a knife on him, and he ends up mortally wounding him, which fuck him. He deserves it. But unfortunately, it's one of those things. It's in one of those states where a guy died, so we gotta prosecute you, type of thing. And so yeah, he ends up going to jail, but he ends up being let out. I think it's like a couple years later. And I do like how they do it. The movie is paced perfectly. Like it gets going. Like he gets like kind of freed, and then there's this scene where we do see him like a little bit in prison, which I do like. But I like that they don't spend like most of the movie of him in prison and stuff. They kind of make it like almost like a montage, and you see him make like a friendship with this guy named I think his name was D'Angelo. I could be fucking wrong. But I'll just say he makes a friend. I can't think of his name right now. But yeah, like I really like that you see him like slowly make friendships and stuff, and then we kind of jump to him being transported in the jailbird while they're transporting criminals like Billy Bedlam, Nathan Diamond Dog Jones, which that's Vin Rames. And while this is happening, you get not agent, I think he's like a prosecutor, Larkin, kind of talking about each prisoner. I like how well this scene is done, where he's like talking about, each prisoner and what they did, or at least the big ones anyway. They don't go through like every single one, but they like go through like the major ones. William William Bedlam, or Billy, was a mass murderer. Nathan Jones was basically a terrorist. And the biggest of them all was Cyrus. Cyrus the Virus is his nickname, played by John Malkovich. And the moment he's on screen, dude, he carries it, man. He plays this so perfectly. Well, because you don't think of him like when he's introduced. He's gonna be like a somewhat of a bad guy. You don't think he's gonna be like the main bad guy, and he is, because he doesn't start off that way. To be fair, he is a prisoner, so he can't just like. But I think they really did a good job. And then you have Johnny 23, which that's one of Danny Trejo's earlier roles. I thought he was pretty good in this movie, even though he's basically just a rapist. That's literally his role the whole movie. Like literally the whole movie, he's trying to basically rape this fucking female cop. The whole movie. That's essentially his arc. But he's a bad guy. He gets his in the end anyway, so it's all good. So, and then you have Joe. I think Joe Parker, which that's Dave Chappelle's character. I thought he was fucking great, and you could see like the Dave Chappelle-isms. You know, you could tell he was a side character, but I really love you could see a little bit of the Dave Chappelle-isms. And then Delaney as an undercover guy go in and basically posing as a prisoner. And then you see the cops kind of give the rundown of like, no, you're a prisoner, you know, you're not gonna. He even like beats up one of the guards, or not one of the guards, but like he beats up one of the prisoners. But while this happens, Joe had actually smuggled some kerosene in, and basically causes a distraction, which has Cyrus and Diamond Dog. I'll just call him that in the movie. Diamond Dog basically take over, and a bunch of other prisoners. They free him. They beat up the guards, and they end up killing one of the undercover cops. And I really like it gets going. Like once they leave, they pretty much are in the air at this point. Or they weren't even in the air that long, and they already taken over. Like this movie is paced so well, and I think it's just action movies back then just knew how to get it going. Like they knew how to go from 0 to 100, but still have a story. Like the story is really simple. He just wants to get back. Like Cameron just wants to get back to his wife, you know, and he wants to protect his diabetic friend. You know, he has diabetes, so and he just ends up in this situation. So yeah, a bunch of prisoners take over. And they basically, there's even a little dialogue between Cyrus and Johnny. And basically Cyrus says, I don't respect rapists, even I'm as bad as a guy I am. I don't in Cyrus had killed shitload of people. And he's like, nah, I don't fuck with rapists. And so basically immediately Johnny immediately tries to rape a cop. Basically gets stopped. And then forces the pilot to pose as a prisoner, while they basically have to make a stop at Carson City so they can pose as cops, so they can get some undercover, or so they can get because he has a friend who's a pilot, and yeah, and I love like I said, there's not a lot of side story. Like the only side story is Larkin and Delaney are trying to stop the plane. Like that's it, you know. They're trying to deal with the situation, and that's it. Like I also really don't get me wrong. I thought the actress and the daughter were fine, but I'm happy they did not make them part of the story. Really, like there's a scene where they have a talk with Larkin, but that's it. There's not There's a scene of his wife, Poe's wife at her home or something, and I'm happy they didn't go there with it, or even in the ending. They didn't go the traditional, he kidnaps, like you have a fucking Cyrus kidnap his wife or something. I'm happy they didn't go that route. I'm kind of happy she really wasn't part of the movie besides the part she was at. Because she wouldn't have fit. This main story this is about literally just a plane jacking. So, they end up landing in Carson City, and they get some new prisoners. We get Gene Dino. It was I think an associate for Malkovich, and not Malkovich, that's the fucking actor. Sorry, Cyrus. And then Cyrus brings in his friend Swamp Thing, who's an actual pilot. They take the transponder out of the plane, which basically is essentially a location. Like it gives a location. They take it. They plan on another plane. They have Joe landed on another plane. While this happens, they're transporting the prisoners, but Larkin and Delaney realize that they're not cops, and then they try to. Bunch of cops show up, and then the plane takes off. But the guy that Joe burned earlier, is notices he's outside and doesn't help. Basically, he's like, "Yo," and Joe's like, "Yo, help me," bring in, and then he doesn't say anything, and he basically dies. while doing it, and they manage to take off. And basically, Cameron plays it cool. He's trying to act like he's part of them, just so he can try to get. Like, he just wants to get out of there. He just wants to see his wife. And also, he has to get some syringes for his like diabetic, because his friend's in is diabetic. So he's unfortunately can only go for so long. While not one night, but like later, Billy goes downstairs and is going through things, and he finds Cameron's box, which has like his daughter's bunny that he's gonna give to her. And this is where he finds like a letter showing that he's not a prisoner anymore. Joe confronts him. And then this is where we get to put the bunny back in the box. See, I fucking love this sequence. And then, yeah, they have a pretty solid fight. And, this is a Nick Cage film, but in a way, I look at this as almost an ensemble film because, Nicolas Cage he's the main character, but he doesn't just get all the story, I feel like everyone brought it, like every actor. I thought John Cusack was great as Larkin. The actor who played Delaney was great, as your kind of asshole government guy. It's understandable. One of his men died, in that plane. He just wants to bring that plane down. And like, even the scene where you have, Larkin tries to contact, the plane, the jailbird, and, Cyrus answers, and you have Cyrus basically antagonizing them. Malkovich plays it so perfectly in this scene, or in this movie, but this scene specifically. But yeah, so Poe ends up killing Billy, pretty brutally. Like, he pushes him onto like a thing that impales through his chest, and while that night, I think it's the same day, Diamond Dog has Cameron, because they're having trouble with like the wheel, the tire, the wheels going out. So then it turns out it's a body. So Cameron basically writes like a message to Larkin because he heard the name, and basically uses it as like a way to like leave him a clue. So he drops the body through, and that's how Larkin is able to find the location. And so Larkin ends up finding the location. Delaney thinks they have a hit on the jailbird, but they end up getting this is where they had that other transponder on the other plane, just from the jailbird. Like, I kind of miss intelligent villains, like, and the thing is, Cyrus isn't like some mastermind, but I do kind of miss like villains who just at least initially could get away with stuff. Like, their plan mostly was working. Let's put a transponder on the transponder from this plane on a different plane, and they'll be tracking that. Like, I kind of like, unfortunately, if Con Air came out now, they would make the villains just dumb as fuck, because that's what you got to do now. Almost do it like, sorry about that. Almost do it like a kids movie, where, like the negative stereotype of kids movie, where you gotta make the villains really retarded. Like, that is unfortunate. I think that would happen if they were to do Con Air now. Like, these villains, they were successful, largely, anyway. So they end up landing at a different airstrip, and Gandino ends up basically trying to fuck him. He had his own plane, but he tries to drive off, but Larkin stops them. But before that, Larkin has a scene with Poe, and basically, and probably one of my favorite lines from Poe this whole movie, or Cameron Poe, He's like, I'm gonna save the fucking day. So good. I kind of do like even that. I miss one-liners like that, but like perfectly timed, not like forced one-liners where they gotta shove it when it's unnecessary. So after that, the prisoners, Michael, Cameron is able to um, convince, fuck, I don't want to mind this one blank. Convince fucking Cyrus, sorry, that just refill the plane. Well, because he has to go look for um a diabetes shot for his friend. And while this happens, Diamond Dog notices the police are coming, and basically they find a bunch of guns on the plane, and they end up along with Bedlam's body, and basically you get a shootout, which is a pretty fun shootout scene to be honest. And it was like I mentioned earlier with successful villains, it was working for a bit. Like they had like the ambush and everything. But yeah, so we have a big shootout scene, and um and Cyrus with because after this is when Gambino and his people try to escape on another plane. Um Larkin gets on like a crane, stops it, basically causes an explosion, and Cyrus throws like a cigarette because while Gambino's like, I cannot pronounce his name, so I just gonna say Gambino. Is getting out of the plane. It's like, yo, help me, and Cyrus just throws a fucking cigarette in, it's like even like that. Like, what happened to villains like that? They're just, just you could plea, and they're like, fuck you, and just set you on fire or shoot you or something. Like, I miss the fact of just cold hearted villains. Not every fucking villain has to be sympathetic. And I'm not saying you can't have your sympathetic villains, but a villain like this that's just bad just to be bad, no fucking reason at all. He's just a bad guy. Sometimes, because let's just be honest, this is the fact of the world. There are just bad people. It's not because like the fucking because of the way they were raised or anything like that. They're just bad people. You know? So it's always like in the movies you gotta I understand movies are fantasy, but it isn't. I do to an extent look at movies at least like an extension of our world somewhat, and I think it needs stuff like that is an extension. There are just bad people out there, and I know people don't want to admit that, but they always want to find a cause. But there are just bad people, so I like movies like this where it's like, yeah, it's just bad. So they managed to escape and on a different plane. And while everyone's celebrating, and I love the one guy, because another prisoner they transport is this, really feminine. And to be honest, this is accurate. Grant, I've never been in prison, so I wouldn't know this, but just even from prison shows I've watched, there are guys like this that are pretty much, they dress like chicks, you know? And I'll admit, he's not even there for any other reason just to be kind of like a punchline. And I thought it was funny. Unfortunately, we're in this clown world now where you can't joke about shit. So that wouldn't happen now. But so yeah, while they're celebrating on the plane, and I thought Steve Buscemi as Garland the Killer was great. I thought, he played it interesting because he didn't play like his usual Steve. He wasn't like Steve Buscemi from Reservoir Dogs or like his other movies where, he's a bit more I would almost say charismatic. He's much more amped up a lot of the time. He's far more reserved in this. He plays it much different than he usually plays it in most movies. So I thought he played it really well, even though he's basically he's a crazy serial killer. And I like his little story where while he was out there, he was having a tea party with a little girl and he basically stopped himself from killing her. I thought that was kind of an interesting angle to go at it, you know? But while this happens, everyone's celebrating. Diamond Dog finds that letter I think Billy found earlier, gives it to to Cyrus, and you know he starts a big goes on a speech. Like God, like just every scene he just kills it. Like the way he delivers the lines, the way he carries himself. And yeah, so he basically he tries to say it's Cameron. Basically, all they find out is that there was a traitor and that someone was giving information to the police. Cameron's friend acts like it was him who did it, and basically he talks shit, and then Cyrus shoots him, and then he kind of comforts him, and then basically we get like a fight scene. He starts taking people out, and while this happens, Larkin and Laney are in a attack helicopters and shooting down the plane, trying to shoot down the plane. But Larkin manages to convince Delaney to tell the guy to hold his fire because he actually trusts in Poe. I actually really like that. Like, like you see this growth and genuine, like even his like friendship with his friend. Like this is a guy he just met in prison, but like that genuine friendship throughout the film. This is what storytelling was back then. Like you're actually seeing growth, and yeah, when he gets to the point, yeah, he gets shot. It's pretty sad, Yeah, unfortunately dies, and yeah, so while this happens, the plane. I keep saying ship. Plane gets shot at, and now it's about to crash, and Poe manages to convince him to land the plane. It was in the sequence where he tries to land the plane is fucking very well done. It's over Vegas, and the cinematography for this scene is very well done. So yeah, the plane crashes, and everything seems fine, and Poe gets out fine, and he sends his friend. Actually, I was fucking wrong. I thought his friend died. No, his friend gets taken to the hospital. I think they leave it kind of ambiguous if he died or not. It looks like he survived. I'm assuming so. But it turns out, and then yeah, we even see Poe's wife and daughter come out. But while this is all happening, Cyrus and Diamond Dog and Swamp Thing manage to escape out on a fire truck, and Larkin and Poe pursue. And this chase scene was very fun. And they even were using fire hoses. And this scene gets kind of gory though when Poe climbs on the truck, and Cyrus tries to like stab him with like this spear thing, and Poe grabs it and he pulls like a part of it off and like impales it in Cyrus's leg. I was like, bruh. I have said this. Anything to do with like legs or ankles getting impaled, that shit gets me. So like, yeah. So, and Larkin takes out the driver, basically causes the thing to crash. And I'm happy they did not go the angle of, let's have fucking Cyrus, because he knows about his wife and kid. He even mentions them before the crash. I'm happy they didn't go that angle. I'm gonna kidnap his wife and kid. I'm happy they didn't go that route. It was something different. So yeah, they managed to stop them, and Poe and Larkin shake hands, and I love the growth there, even though they really haven't interacted a lot in the movie, but it was still believable with their growth. And then he gets to see his wife and kid again. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that scene was very warming when he got to see his wife and kid, and you have this song playing. And like I said, not a normal song I listen to, but it works for this scene. Just very fun movie. It's a fun action. Yeah, like it's your typical 80s, 90s action film, but I like the story in it. It keeps the simplicity of it, and I think that's why a lot of these movies work. And I do find myself watching them sometimes. Like I said, I'm not against movies that have a lot of moving parts and some complexity, if done right. But I do like sometimes just watching just simple stuff, like where, plot is straightforward. It's a hijacking movie and they got to try to get the plane back while Cameron wants to try to see his wife and kid. Like that's like the only two real major story points in this movie, to be honest. Very good performances by, like I said, MVP of the movie is John Malkovich as Cyrus. Every scene just like he stole the scenery. Just the way he delivered lines. He was a fun bad guy. The scene where he was antagonizing the cops about killing the undercover agent was fucking great. Yeah, this movie is funny. I thought there was some genuinely funny one-liners, and like I said, Nicolas Cage's accent was so great. Nicolas Cage was great. John Cusack was great. I thought Vin Rhames was great. Like all around, just great performances and just a great action film and great '90s film. One of Nicolas Cage's best. I understand why a lot of people pick this one as their favorite. I understand why people wanted me to do this one as the first one. So happy to say I reviewed it. And it's been a bit since I've watched it, so I'm happy I watched it again. So my next Nick Cage movie will be The Rock, and that's actually my favorite. It's that one, or the first National Treasure could be close, but I really loved fucking The Rock. I love the whole premise. Them in Alcatraz. The villain was great. Cage's chemistry with Sean Connery, and I'm big. Connery was. There was a period I really loved James Bond, and specifically Sean Connery's James Bond, and just to see them together was great. So I will definitely. I'm happy. I can't wait to review that one next week. But Con Air is great. 9 out of 10 action film. The soundtrack is great. Fun film. I heavily recommend it if you haven't seen it. If you want like Nick Cage at his best, this is one of those. So tomorrow, like I mentioned, I'm reviewing Tremors: Cold Day in Hell. I hope it's at least watchable in like 5. We'll see. I do like the idea of the graboids and stuff. I think that could be an interesting thing, but we got to see if it'll be executed well. But like I said, most Tremors fans, from what I've seen, really 4 is where you kind of end it. I've even seen some people say just end it at the first one, but